Hello friends. Today we have a very hot issue. Let's look at the brave politicians who spoke the truth to Ursula von der Leyen's face. Believe me, the issue will be very interesting and bright. They won't show this on TV. Let's not delay, let's start. The first speaker was Eva Zichenkovskaya-Hernik. He is a brave and charismatic public figure, known for his sharp statements and uncompromising position on topical issues of politics and society. Her analytical comments and passion for the truth have made her a voice for those who are tired of political manipulation and bureaucratic hypocrisy. Eva actively covers the topics of migration, economic crises, and European politics, calling for honesty, transparency, and protection of the interests of ordinary citizens. Here are her words. During Ursula von der Leyen's previous tenure as President of the European Commission, serious mistakes were made, which are still felt by many. These mistakes destroyed the European economy and agriculture, turning Europe into an open-air museum. We Europeans are getting poorer and poorer. In this regard, I appeal to Ursula not only as a politician, but also as a woman to a woman, mother to mother. How can you not be ashamed to promote the Migration Pact, which threatens the safety of millions of women and children on the streets of our cities? This pact means an increase in danger. Every attack and every tragedy caused by illegal migrants is to some extent your responsibility, since you invite them to come to Europe. You really have to take responsibility for your actions. Your place is in the courtroom rather than in the European Commission. Your presence as President of the European Commission means the further collapse of the European Union. What do we think about your Green Agreement? It only complicates the lives of citizens. And your Migration Pact? His support is destroying the social foundations of Europe. You don't even face reality. We want to see Europe free and sovereign, and not dragged into the abyss of leftist ideology. And all the soldiers defending the eastern borders of Europe deserve the deepest respect and gratitude. The next politician who takes the floor is Manon Aubry. She is a bright and principled politician representing the left-wing movement in the European Parliament. She is known for her tireless struggle for social justice, women's rights, and environmental responsibility. Manon stands out for his sharp mind and directness, actively raising issues of inequality, economic transparency, and protection of vulnerable segments of the population. Her voice is the voice of those who strive for progressive change and solidarity in Europe. Here is her quote, "Friends, we are listening. Your speech today, Ms. von der Leyen, showed how much you despise real people. You didn't even talk about poverty and unemployment. Instead, you talked about competitiveness and prosperity, trying to please the business. But the reality is this. Every third European is forced to skip meals, and many families cannot afford basic things. People will not be able to go on vacation this summer because their bank balance does not allow it. So please step down from your pedestal and face the truth. We cannot afford another semester of your ineffective policy. You talk about fighting climate change, but at the same time your measures do not protect either farmers or industrialists in the face of international competition. You are entering into free trade agreements that harm European manufacturers and strengthening austerity rules. You also don't protect transparency by allowing lobbyists to influence decisions. A recent court decision has once again highlighted your inability to act in the interests of citizens. You shouldn't even have come here today. You should have been in front of the judges. Your tenure as President of the European Commission is accompanied by criticism for every decision. You have been sitting in this chair over and over again, despite the fact that your actions have plunged Europe into political chaos. The economy is collapsing, the migration crisis is getting worse, and Europe is no longer the same as it was known before. Farmers, businessmen, ordinary people, they all suffer because of the decisions made in the Brussels offices. You talk about supporting peace and ending the bloodshed, but in reality your actions do not confirm this. You don't stand up to the leaders responsible for genocide and conflict. Instead, you prefer rhetoric without real action. You do not protect human rights. You ignore the needs of those who are in exile. Where is your Europe of solidarity? You built Europe out of barbed wire, and this has become your legacy. Many people are wondering if it's worth continuing with you for another 5 years. Citizens want clarity and fairness, not deals made on the sidelines. Europe needs real leaders who will work for its future, not for their own political ambitions. We cannot afford to further worsen the situation. Our group will not support this game, and we will call for clarity on climate change, women's rights, fundamental rights, and peace. Of course, as over the past 5 years, we will support any text aimed in this direction. We know that it is not only about words, but also about actions. I'm finishing up. We refuse to participate in this masquerade, and the voices of the left will be directed against your re-election, Mrs. von der Leyen. We oppose austerity policies and pro-market policies, and we will defend unity and solidarity, end quote. Next, I will show you the speech of another politician. We are now giving the floor to Hugh Bruns for 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President of the European Commission, of course, we cannot change reality, but everyone can see the state of the European Union. Europe is going through a crisis. Trust in its institutions is becoming less and less, and living conditions are deteriorating. The cost of living is rising and continues to rise, because the liberal establishment prefers to remain in the delusion that it is able to save the planet through climate policy. However, economic self-destruction is taking place instead. Companies are leaving our continent, desperate farmers are taking to the streets with demonstrations, and Europe is losing its status as a significant player on the world stage. Dear Ursula von der Leyen, you were a very weak president, if not the worst in history. 5 years ago, as a group of European conservatives and reformers, we supported your candidacy. However, our choice was not the result of enthusiasm. We just chose the lesser evil, as the alternative was Franz Timmermans. I remember our meeting with you when you tried to deceive us with all kinds of promises. But today we are not so naive anymore. You made extremely narrow decisions in a limited circle of your German advisors, ignoring cooperation with the commissioners. You had 2 key ambitions that completely defined your work style. Besides, you weren't being truthful. You have been misleading the public about the recovery plan for a long time. In conversations with the Polish president, you promised to unlock funds, but you never did. Transparency has certainly not been your strong suit. We remember your talks with the head of Pfizer, and this is where the main question arises. Why continue to experiment with your leadership if it is obvious that it is leading to collapse? All that is needed is to honestly admit that elections should not depend on manipulation and lucrative deals, but on the interests of people. A simple but clear choice. Either to continue the destructive policy or choose an alternative that will give a chance for change. Let's delve into the essence of what is happening. Look at how Ursula von der Leyen once again demonstrates her helplessness in the face of real problems. While millions of Europeans are suffering, she continues to talk about green agreements and climate policy, ignoring pressing issues. She doesn't notice that people are losing their jobs, farmers are going out to protest, and the cost of living is rising every day. There is not a word in her speech about how to help these people. All this is for the sake of some abstract prosperity that only large corporations and top managers see in their green offices. You have treated my country unfairly. You were supposed to be impartial as the chairman of the commission, but you clearly took the side of the then opposition, seeking to change the government in Poland. You accused the government of violating the rule of law, but that was complete hypocrisy. The current government has seized control of the media, the prosecutor's office, and the courts. Ladies and gentlemen, the procedure under the 7th article has been closed, although not a single law in Poland has changed. This is not a fight for the climate, but a fight for money and political interests. By supporting these groups, Ursula becomes not just a politician, but an accomplice to destruction. Its actions threaten European sovereignty. Europe has become a hostage to its ideology. Those who decide how an ordinary person will live sit at meetings, discuss the climate, forgetting about real people. The most annoying thing is that with every word she says, with every decision, Europeans lose faith in the future. But Ursula doesn't stop. On the contrary, she is ready to extend her policy for another 5 years, despite the chaos she leaves behind, end quote. Friends, let's see what is happening in the European Union right now. The European Union is in a state of deep crisis. Cheap energy from Russia, the foundation on which European industry has been built for decades, has disappeared, and in return we were offered expensive and unstable green energy. Instead of strategic planning, we see endless political games that lead only to degradation. The economy is collapsing under the weight of high energy prices and ill-conceived sanctions. The refugees who have flooded Europe have become not just a humanitarian challenge, but a threat to security and social stability. At the same time, large companies, including the flagships of the German automotive industry, are leaving the EU en masse, moving their production facilities to the United States, where business conditions are more favorable. Europe no longer seems to be a strong player on the world stage. We are losing everything: jobs, capital, technology. Look at what's left of Europe: destroyed markets, stagnation, and social stratification. Politicians are busy promoting their utopias, ignoring reality. We were fed promises of prosperity, but instead we got expensive living, factories closing, and unemployment. Those who recently called the EU a strong economy are now doing everything to leave this sinking boat. Europe has become a hostage of ideology, and people are hostages of politicians who think only about their own ambitions. We are wasting time and resources by continuing this farce. If we do not change course, we will only fall further into the abyss. So, friends, if you don't want to go through this again and watch the political games go on while Europe is drowning in problems, it's time to express your opinion. Subscribe to the channel, like it. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. Here it is, the moment of truth. All this time, Ursula von der Leyen has been building her policy on quicksand, hoping that her tricks will go unnoticed. But the peak has come. The European Union is on the verge of disaster. The economy is stagnating, falling into the trap of complacency and populist rhetoric. And what is she going to do if she is re-elected? All the same talk about competitiveness and environmental policy, while the real world is collapsing. If her re-election takes place, it will be a great test for Europe. Think for yourself. How can you support a politician whose decisions have led to such sad consequences? The answer is obvious. 5 years of destruction. We need to ask ourselves the question: is it worth continuing, or is it time for a change? Write in the comments what you think about her politics and future. Your voice is important, because together we can make a difference. Whatever the events, one thing is clear: Ursula von der Leyen has left her mark on history. But this is a trail that you can't be proud of. The Migration Pact, the economic crisis, and the ridiculous green policy are all her legacy. And what did we get in return? Only the destruction of the European Union, the deepening of the social and economic abyss. With her political future becoming less certain, we can only watch as this political comedy continues to unfold. It is strange that she is called a leader when her decisions only exacerbate the crisis. We all understand that the real choice of Europeans may differ. But Ursula stands her ground, assuring everyone that she is the savior of Europe. Her policies bring frustration and pain to ordinary citizens. We see how her actions lead to chaos step by step. We need to decide: are we ready to continue this path, or are we finally ready to change something? Europe is on the verge of financial collapse, and Ursula von der Leyen continues to hold a post that is clearly unsuitable. Her green policy is an economic failure. Her empty talk about environmental responsibility is just a cover for the problems she has created herself. And all this during the 5 years of her reign. But what's next? Will we stay with this burden for another 5 years, or will we still choose to change? I am impressed by how politicians, despite Ursula von der Leyen's high position, were able to honestly and frankly express their criticism of her. This requires not only professionalism, but also courage, because not everyone is ready to openly question the decisions of such an influential figure. The fact that they were not afraid to tell the truth to their face is a vivid example of honesty and responsibility, which are so important in politics. After all, it is only through constructive dialogue that solutions can be reached that serve the interests of all citizens, not just the top authorities. In addition, I believe that such moments help strengthen democracy and political culture. When leaders not only listen to their colleagues, but are also ready for open discussion, it contributes to a healthier political climate. These actions show that honesty and directness are not only possible, but also necessary for the system to function correctly and fairly. Ursula von der Leyen remains one of the most discussed figures in European politics. Her actions evoke polar assessments, from admiration for initiatives to harsh criticism for failures. What is your position? Should Ursula von der Leyen continue to lead the European Commission, or should she give way to new leaders? Share your opinion in the comments. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.